Hello everyone, happy to start a new series today about calling people up for the Torah. I know that in many shuls this is a point of contention. You don't get enough aliyahs, or a certain person got too many aliyahs, whatever it might be. The bottom line is that it happens to be an ancient custom to call people up for the Torah. In the Siddur of Rav Amram Gaon, it already says what we are used to in shul. Akol havu godel Eloheinu, tnu kavod laTorah, Kohen krav Ploni bar Ploni haKohen, ve'men sham Kohen, Omer Yisrael krav, etc. Indeed, the Shulchan Aruch himself says, regarding a very interesting case, Yesh misha omer shim kara hachazan Kohen Levi, ve'eino sham, lo yikra la'acher b'shem, mishum pigamo shel rishon, ela acher ya'aleh me'atzmo. That if you called up a Kohen or a Levi by name and they're not there, you should call up another Kohen, but not by name, because if you do, it would connote that the first one, for some reason or another, is not a kosher Kohen or Levi. We don't want that to happen. He's as kosher as the next guy. He just happened to leave the room. So when you originally gave out aliyahs, he was there, and then for some reason, he is not. So we see from the Shulchan Aruch very clear that there was a custom to call people up by name. In addition, the Shulchan Aruch and Even HaEzer, when talking about which name to write in a shtar like a ketubah, says v'yemen lo shem muvhak shebo oleh lesefer Torah v'chotem ktavav v'shtitrotav oto shem hu ha'ikar. If he doesn't have a name in which they call him to the Torah, then you write this name. Then you write a different name in the shtar, connoting that, of course, they called him to the Torah by name. The Rama doesn't disagree with this. He writes in a different place in Simon Kuf Lamed Tzif Gimel that Ena Chazan Oleh Rak Keshazgan Omer Lo La'alot. The Baal Koreh does not get an aliyah unless the Gabbai tells him to. Aval, but he says, "En korin lo bishmo kamo shara olim shekorim otam bishmam." When you call up the Baal Koreh, you don't call him up like the rest of the people. And how do you call up the rest of the people? Ploni bar Ploni. So, obviously, this is an ancient Jewish custom. There are a few reasons given in the poskim as to why the name is so important when you call people up. The Ravya, Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yoel Halevi, 1140 to 1220. He was the grandson of the Rahavon, was the rabbi in Kellen in Germany. He comes along and says, in order not to create fights. Indeed, aliyahs is a point of contention. Only 3 during the week, only 5 on Yantiv. You're going to give the first 2 to a Kohen and a Levi. There's not much left. And therefore, to go ahead and not have fights about who goes up, you have a Gabbai. The Gabbai calls up the person, and only then does the person go up. It's repeated by the Mordechai, the famous Mordechai, Rabbi Mordechai Rabbi Hillel, talking about the end of the time of the Tosfos, 1240 to 1298. The Mordechai was killed al Kiddush Hashem together with his wife, who was the daughter of Rabbi Yechiel Miparis, who was the Rebbe of his Rebbe, the Maharam Ruttenberg, and everything. He writes that the reason for this is Mishum Dilma Ate Le'initzuye. So there shouldn't be fights as a guy who decides who gets aliyahs, and therefore there shouldn't be fights as to who gets the aliyah. We call them up by name. The second is nothing to do with the people, but rather with why you're going up. Not the kavod of the people, but the kavod of the Torah. We try to call up to the Torah people that are special, and indeed it's kavod to the Torah that the special people are coming up to our special Torah. And that's what the Shut Beit Yitzchak of Rav Yitzchak Shmelke says, that in order to ultimately give more importance to the Torah, we call up people by name, and people say, an important person came up to the Torah, and must mean the Torah is important. The Shulchan Tahor. This is a book written by a Hasidic Rebbe, the second Hasidic Rebbe of the Qumrana Hasidim, Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Yehuda Yechiel Safrin, 1806 to 1874. He writes that you call people to the Torah, Ki Shem Kol Yisrael V'Nafsho Merumas B'Torah V'Yesh Lo Chelek B'Torah. After every Amidah we say, Ten Chelkeinu B'Toratecha, give us our part in the Torah. Every Jew has a part in the Torah. Namely, his name has to be in some way or another hinted in the Torah, and therefore, when you call him up to the Torah, you call him up by name. However, maybe the most convincing reason is the reason that we've said many times. The Yerushalmi talks about a story of a guy who was both the Baal Koreh and the Meturgaman. And he wanted to do both. And they said, no, you can't do that. When you lane, we have to mimic the way the Torah was given at Sinai. And therefore the Levush, Rav Mordechai Yaffe, in his parish to the Shulchan Aruch, 17th century, he writes that the Gabbai is instead of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Baal Koreh is instead of Moshe receiving the Torah, and the guy getting the Aliyah is in place of all the Jewish people getting it from Moshe. So from this perspective, the Gabbai is standing Kivyachol in place of Hashem. Well, when Hashem gave the Torah, one of the many, many things that happened at Ma'amad Har Sinai was what the Yalkut Shimoni says in a Medrash, that all the nations of the world came along and said, hey, why are you giving the Torah to the Jewish people? And God said, because I only give the Torah to those that have a yuchsin, that have good yichus, that have good ancestry. As it says in the famous pasuk in Tehillim that we say Friday nights, Havu laHashem mishpachot hamim, bring to God the families of the nations. Shelo zachu litolet haTorah, ela b'shvil hayuchsin shelahen. The only reason they got the Torah is because of their pedigree, because of the former generations. We got the Torah. Well, based on this, a famous book called Mikrei Dardiki. This book was written by Rav Hillel Lichtenstein, 1815 to 1891, and one of the Talmidim of the Chasam Sofer. He says that you have to call up the person by his name in the name of his father, because since God gave the Torah by virtue of our pedigree, so too, when you go and receive the Torah, and as we said earlier, when you get an Aliyah, you're receiving the Torah from Kivyachol Moshe, the Baal Koreh, who's getting it from God calling him, the Gabbai. You only get the Torah because of your pedigree. So therefore, when you get an Aliyah, we mention your pedigree, we mention you and the name of your father. One of the many things we do at the Bima to remember Mamad Har Sinai. Just like in Matan Torah, we got the Torah by virtue of our forefathers. We're called up to the Torah, Ya'amod, whatever, Bain, whoever it might be. And finally, there's a very interesting reason that's brought in a book about the Yekish customs called Otzar Kol Minhagei Yeshurun, and I really don't understand it, but this is what they say. When you write a get, you have to write the right name. We are so machmir that the get be kosher that we write every single name that person was ever called. So if I take my name, I'm Yehoshua. I'm sometimes called Josh, sometimes called Shui, sometimes called other names. You have to write all those names in a get. We call up the person by their proper name, so if God forbid he needs to give a get to his wife, we will know his name because he's been called up a few times to the Torah by that name. That is the colloquial custom of calling people up by name, and we gave a few reasons for it. However, there is another custom to call people up, albeit not by name. And the question is, why? More about that next time.
Malchi soy, malchi soy, ulai ni, biz ma kuroi, besi kule.